The research station was a collection of low buildings surrounded by a simple fence. As Park led the alien students through the main gate, several humans came out to greet them. Unlike the students' expectations, there was no rush of medical, personnel, or emergency response. The humans simply looked pleased to see them arrive. "Welcome to Earth Research Station 7, said a woman with short gray hair. "I'm Director Minji. We've been tracking your progress." "Tracking our progress?" Taesu asked, his forearms dropping in exhaustion now that they had reached safety. Minji smiled. "Yes. Your transport had monitoring systems, and Park's equipment transmitted your location and status the entire journey." The aliens looked at Park, who was chatting easily with other station staff, as if their harrowing trek through the wilderness had been nothing unusual. "Come inside," Minji said. "You must be tired after your adventure." Inside the main building, the temperature and humidity were controlled to more comfortable levels for the alien visitors. The students began removing the outer layers of their environmental suits while station staff offered them drinks specially prepared for their unique biologies. Jinwoo couldn't contain his questions any longer. "The lightning strike that disabled our transport, was that just bad luck?" Director Minji and Professor Daiki exchanged glances. "It wasn't luck," Professor Daiki admitted. "The transport was designed to shut down at that specific point in the journey." The students stared at their professor in shock. "You mean this was planned?" Hyori's crystalline form flashed with indignation. "We could have died out there." "No," Park said calmly, joining the conversation. "You were never in real danger. We monitored everything carefully and could have sent emergency transport if needed." "But why trick us?" Sunwoo asked, his gravity compensators finally powered down as he sat in a specially designed chair. Professor Daiki moved to the center of the room. "Would you have learned the same lesson if we had simply arrived at the station as scheduled? Would you have understood what makes humans unique if you only observed them in controlled environments?" The students were silent, processing this information. "Think about what you experienced today," Park suggested. "You faced a storm, crossed difficult terrain, and encountered a predator. On your homeworlds, any one of these would be considered a major emergency. But here, it's just Tuesday," Director Minji added with a smile. Taesu's anger faded as he considered this. "The academic texts describe humans as adaptable, but I never understood what that meant until today." "Exactly," Professor Daiki nodded. "Some things cannot be learned from data alone." "So the real field trip was the journey to the station, not the station itself?" Hyori asked. "The entire visit is educational," Director Minji explained. "But yes, we find that visitors learn more about humans from the journey than from any presentation we could give." After resting and refreshing themselves, the aliens were shown to comfortable quarters designed for their specific biological needs. They were surprised to discover that the research station regularly hosted visitors from dozens of different worlds, each with unique environmental requirements. "How do you accommodate so many different species?" Jinwoo asked as a staff member adjusted his room's moisture levels. "We're good at solving problems," the human replied simply. "When we don't have a ready solution, we create one." That evening, the students gathered on an observation deck that overlooked the valley. The storm had passed, leaving the sky clear. Stars shone brightly above, and the forest below was alive with sounds of Earth's nocturnal creatures. What caught their attention, however, were the humans. At the edge of the station grounds, several staff members had built a fire and were sitting around it, cooking food directly in the flames. "What are they doing?" Sunwoo asked Professor Daiki. "Is that a survival necessity?" "No," the professor explained. "They call it camping. It's a recreational activity where they voluntarily sleep outdoors and cook over open fires, even though they have modern facilities available." "They choose to be uncomfortable?" Hyori couldn't understand the concept. "They don't see it as uncomfortable," Director Minji said, joining them on the deck. "They find it connecting. It reminds them of their history and challenges them in small ways." The aliens watched as the humans laughed and shared stories around the fire. Later, Some took out musical instruments and began to play songs. It seemed so peaceful, yet these were the same creatures who could face down predators and navigate deadly storms. They contain contradictions, Tesu observed. They seek both comfort and challenge, safety and risk. That's the key to understanding humans, Professor Daiki agreed. They don't just survive their death world, they embrace it. Later that night, Tesu found Park sitting alone on the deck, looking at the stars. "May I join you?" the four-armed alien asked. Park nodded. Tesu settled beside him, all four of his arms relaxed now that his environmental suit was properly repaired. "I have a question," Tesu said after a moment of silence. "Do you ever wish you lived on a less dangerous world? Somewhere safer? More controlled?" Park considered this thoughtfully. "I've visited some Class 1 worlds," he said finally. "Beautiful places. Perfect weather, no predators, no natural disasters." "And?" Tesu prompted. "And they were boring," Park smiled. "The challenge is what makes us who we are. Without it, we wouldn't be human. Even though it means living with constant danger?" "Especially because of that," Park replied. "The dangers of Earth shaped us, pushed us to adapt, to think, to cooperate. Everything humans have achieved, our technology, our art, our space travel, comes from the same qualities that helped us survive here." Tesu was quiet for a moment. "When I arrived, I pitied humans for evolving on such a harsh world. Now I think perhaps other species are the ones missing something." The next morning, the alien students gathered to board their ship. Their visit had been shorter than planned due to the detour, but what they had learned far exceeded their expectations. Director, Minji and Park came to say goodbye. "I hope you'll share what you've experienced with others at the Academy," Minji said. "Many species fear Earth because they don't understand it. Or us. I will never look at humans the same way again," Jinwoo promised. "You have earned our respect." As their ship lifted off, the students looked down at Earth, its swirling weather patterns, vast oceans, and imposing mountain ranges. They had arrived seeing only the dangers of this death world. They departed seeing the remarkable species it had produced. In their academic reports, each student noted the same conclusion. The most dangerous thing about Earth isn't its environment, predators or natural disasters. It's the resilient, adaptable, innovative species that call such a hostile world home. And that species doesn't just survive here. They thrive. They create art and music. They explore and discover. They build and innovate. Because that's what humans do. They take a death world and make it home. And perhaps, the students realized, that was the greatest lesson Earth had to teach the galaxy. The downhill path to the research station looked easier than their previous trek, but Park remained alert. The rain had stopped, but water still dripped from the trees, and the late afternoon sun cast long shadows through the forest. "We'll reach the station in about 20 minutes, Park told the group. "The worst is behind us." The alien students moved with growing confidence. They had survived Earth's storm and difficult terrain. Their environmental suits were functioning adequately despite the challenges, and the sight of their destination gave them new energy. Professor Daiki noted the change in his students with approval. "You're adapting," he told them. "Already your movements are more efficient on this terrain." "I wouldn't say I enjoy this," Jinwoo replied, his moisture regulators humming softly. "But I understand why you wanted us to experience it firsthand." Park suddenly stopped walking. His posture changed in an instant. His back straightened, his shoulders tensed, and his head turned slightly as if listening for something. "What's wrong?" Tesu asked, his forearms twitching nervously. Park held up one hand in a signal for silence. He slowly scanned the forest around them, his eyes narrowing as they focused on the shadows between the trees. "We're being watched," he said quietly. "Everyone stay together and keep moving. Don't run." "Watched? By what?" Hiyori's crystalline form dimmed with anxiety. "Mountain lion," Park replied, pointing discreetly to a rocky outcropping about 30 meters away. "Adult female." The aliens followed his gaze but saw nothing at first. Then, a slight movement caught their eye. Tawny fur almost perfectly blended with the surrounding rocks. Two yellow eyes stared directly at them. "A predator," Professor Decky whispered, his scanner quietly recording the encounter. "Is it dangerous?" "Potentially," Park said. "They usually avoid humans, but this one is curious. Probably hasn't seen aliens before." The mountain lion shifted position, and now they could see its full form. A muscular body about 2 meters long, with powerful limbs and a twitching tail. It was both beautiful and terrifying. "What do we do?" Sunwoo asked, his gravity compensators whirring as his body tensed. "Keep moving normally," Park instructed. "I'll stay between you and the cat. Don't run. That triggers their chase instinct." The group continued walking, but the atmosphere had completely changed. What had been a simple hike was now a tense journey through a predator's territory. The mountain lion moved parallel to them, disappearing and reappearing among the rocks and trees. It seemed to be following them, maintaining a distance but clearly interested. "It's stalking us," Jinwoo said, his voice rising with panic. "Not exactly," Park replied. "More like escorting us through its territory. But stay alert." As they walked, the aliens observed a transformation in their human guide. Park's previously casual demeanor had shifted to something more primal and focused. His movements became more deliberate, his senses obviously heightened. Without any technological assistance, he tracked the mountain lion's position, often looking directly at spots where the predator would appear seconds later. "How are you doing that?" Hayori asked. "Doing what?" Park replied, his eyes never stopping. Their continuous scan of the surroundings, predicting where it will be before it appears, she clarified. "Pattern recognition," Park said. "All predators move in certain ways. When you grow up on Earth, you learn to read these patterns." Professor Decky was documenting everything with quiet fascination. "This is incredible," he told his students. "We're witnessing dormant predatory instincts in action. Humans evolved as both prey and predator. They understand both mindsets." The mountain lion suddenly changed direction, dropping down from the rocks to the path ahead of them. It stood directly in their way, tail swishing slowly back and forth. The aliens froze. Their species had evolved beyond predator-prey relationships millennia ago. None of them had ever faced a wild animal that might see them as food. Park stepped forward, positioning himself between the predator and the group. His stance changed again. He stood taller, his arms slightly away from his body to increase his apparent size. "Stay behind me," he said calmly. "Don't move suddenly." The mountain lion lowered its head slightly, ears flattening in a threatening posture. A low growl emerged from its throat. Park responded with a series of actions that shocked the aliens. He raised his arms higher, made himself appear larger, and produced a loud, commanding vocalization that was unlike his normal speaking voice. "Hey, back off!" he shouted, the sound echoing through the forest. The mountain lion hesitated, clearly surprised by this response from potential prey. "What are you doing?" Tae-Soo whispered urgently. "Changing the dynamic," Park explained without turning around. "On Earth, predators assess risk before attacking. I'm making myself look like too much trouble." The standoff continued for tense seconds. The mountain lion took a step forward, and Park responded by clapping his hands together, sharply, and shouting again. He picked up a nearby branch and threw it to the side of the cat, not hitting it but creating a startling distraction. The aliens watched in amazement as Park engaged in a psychological battle with a natural predator. There was no technology involved, no weapons, just pure animal communication between two species that understood the language of dominance and territory. "Humans are apex predators on this planet," Professor Decky explained quietly to his students. "Not because they have the sharpest teeth or strongest claws, but because of their intelligence combined with physical adaptations." After what seemed like an eternity but was actually less than a minute, the mountain lion turned and moved back into the forest, occasionally looking back at the strange group but maintaining its distance. "Is it gone?" Jinwoo asked, his gills fluttering with stress. "Not gone, but no longer interested in us," Park said, his body gradually relaxing. "She's realized we're not worth the risk." As they resumed walking, the aliens looked at Park with new eyes. The seemingly ordinary human had transformed before them into something else, a creature perfectly adapted to survive on a world full of dangers. That was educational, Hiyori said finally. In all my studies of Earth, I never understood what makes humans different until now. What's that? Park asked, his manner returning to its previous casual state, though his eyes still scanned the forest regularly. You're not just survivors on a death world, she replied. You're part of it. You understand its rules. Park nodded. That's why we're called Deathworlders, he explained. It's not just that our planet is dangerous. It's that we evolved to be more dangerous than anything on it when we need to be. The encounter had changed the aliens' perception completely. They had arrived on Earth seeing humans as an anomaly, a species that somehow survived on a hostile planet. Now they understood that humans were the product of that hostility, shaped by it into something unique in the galaxy. Most species evolved to fit into safe ecological niches, Professor Daiki added. Humans evolved to adapt to changing conditions, to solve new problems, to face new threats. That's why they've advanced so quickly compared to other species. The research station was now just a few hundred meters away. As they approached, they could see other humans moving around the buildings, going about their work as if they weren't living on a planet that could kill them in countless ways. After what we just experienced, how can they be so casual? Sunwoo asked, watching a human researcher collecting plant samples without any protective gear. Because to us this is normal, Park said. Earth isn't a death world to humans. It's just home. As they reached the edge of the station grounds, the group paused to look back at the forest they had traversed. What had seemed like an impossible journey now felt like an accomplishment. Thank you, Taisu said to Park, for keeping us safe. Park smiled. You did well. Better than most first-time visitors to Earth. You should be proud. The aliens hadn't just survived a walk through Earth's wilderness. They had gained a new understanding of the species that called this dangerous planet home. And there was more to learn as their visit continued. Rain poured down in heavy sheets as Park led the 4 alien students and Professor Daiki along the muddy path. They had been walking for 20 minutes, but to the aliens, it felt like hours. Every step was a struggle against Earth's harsh conditions. Watch your footing here, Park called back, pointing to a section of trail where water rushed across their path. The ground is unstable. Tae-Soo moved cautiously, his 4 arms helping him balance. Behind him, Jinwoo's breathing apparatus worked overtime, the filters struggling to process the moisture-laden air. Hiyori's crystalline body glittered with raindrops, while Sunwoo fought against the combination of mud and gravity with each step. How much farther? Jinwoo asked, his voice barely audible over the storm. About 2 kilometers, Park replied. We're making good progress. Tae-Soo looked up in disbelief. This is good progress? We've barely covered a third of the distance. Park smiled. In these conditions, yes, you're all doing better than I expected. A flash of lightning illuminated the forest around them, followed by a rumble of thunder. The storm was moving closer. The electrical activity is intensifying, Professor Daiki noted, checking his handheld scanner. The lightning strikes are occurring at increasing frequency. We should find temporary shelter, Park decided, scanning the area. There's an overhang just ahead where we can wait out the worst of it. He led them off the main path toward a rocky formation where a natural stone ledge created a shallow cave. It wasn't completely dry, but it offered protection from the direct downpour. The aliens huddled together under the overhang, their environmental suits giving off soft warning beeps as various systems struggled to maintain optimal conditions. My pressure regulators are reaching critical levels, Tae-Soo said, checking the display on his wrist. They weren't designed for such rapid atmospheric changes. Park knelt beside him. May I? He asked, gesturing to Tae-Soo's suit controls. The 4-armed alien hesitated, then nodded. Park's fingers moved quickly over the complex alien technology, making subtle adjustments. Try recalibrating to use Earth's baseline as your new normal, he suggested. Instead of fighting to maintain your homeworld conditions, let the suit adapt to smaller variances from Earth standard. Tae-Soo made the changes, and the warning beeps slowed, then stopped. How did you know that would work? Experience, Park said simply. He moved on to check each of the others, offering small adjustments and advice for their equipment. Professor Dakey watched with approval. Notice how he problem solves, he told his students. This is characteristic of Deathworld. Species, they don't just endure, they adapt and overcome. But why live this way at all? Hiyori asked, her crystalline form dimming with fatigue. Why not create controlled environments like every other advanced civilization? We do have controlled environments in our cities, Park explained. But we also maintain our connection to nature. It's part of who we are. A loud crack interrupted their conversation as a large branch broke free from a nearby tree, crashing down just meters from their shelter. The aliens flinched collectively, while Park merely glanced at it, assessing that it posed no immediate danger. That could have killed someone, Sunwoo exclaimed. Yes, Park agreed calmly. Earth constantly reminds us to stay alert. They rested for 15 minutes while the storm reached its peak intensity. Rain fell in blinding sheets and the wind howled through the trees. Despite their shelter, they were all wet and uncomfortable. The main storm cell is passing, Park announced, studying the sky. We should move now while there's a break in the intensity. Move? In this? Jinwoo gestured to the conditions outside their small shelter. This is actually better than before, Park said. And we need to reach the station before dark. What happens at dark? Tae-soo asked nervously. Temperature drops, visibility decreases, and some of the local wildlife becomes more active, Park explained. It's safer to travel now. Reluctantly, the aliens prepared to move again. As they left the shelter, they noticed the ground had changed. What had been a simple muddy path was now partially flooded in sections. The water level has risen significantly, Professor Dakey observed. Park nodded. The drainage in this area can't handle this much rain so quickly. We'll need to take a different route. He led them uphill away from the main path. The climb was steep, and the wet ground made it treacherous. Park moved with surprising agility, finding secure footholds, and occasionally reaching back to offer a steadying hand to the struggling aliens. Humans evolved as persistence hunters, Professor Dakey explained to his students as they climbed. Their bodies are designed for this kind of movement across varied terrain. Persistence hunters? Hiyori repeated, her voice reflecting her surprise. Yes, the professor confirmed. Unlike many predator species that rely on ambush or short bursts of speed, early humans would track prey for hours or even days, pursuing until the animal collapsed from exhaustion. The aliens looked at Park with new understanding. His seemingly ordinary body was actually a highly specialized tool shaped by millions of years of evolution on this unforgiving world. As they reached higher ground, they encountered a new obstacle, a gap where part of the hillside had washed away, creating a 2-meter-wide chasm with rushing water below. We'll have to jump, Park said, assessing the distance. Jump? Tae-soo's forearms gesticulated wildly. That's impossible. Park stepped back, took a short run, and easily cleared the gap, landing solidly on the other side. He turned and looked expectantly at the aliens. It's wider than it looks, he assured them. Your suits will compensate for Earth's gravity if you commit to the jump. One by one, with Park's guidance, the aliens made the crossing. Sunwoo went last, his gravity compensators whining with the effort. As he landed, the muddy edge crumbled beneath his feet. He began to slip backward toward the chasm. In an instant, Park lunged forward, his hand shooting out to grab Sunwoo's arm. With strength that seemed impossible for his frame, he pulled the alien to safety. How did you move so fast? Sunwoo asked, his voice shaking. Adrenaline, Park said. Human bodies release chemicals during danger that enhance our strength and speed. You have emergency biological systems? Hiyori asked, fascinated despite her fatigue. Built right in, Park confirmed. Another adaptation to living on a death world. They continued their journey, the terrain becoming more challenging as they moved away from the established paths. Park led them through dense undergrowth, across small streams and over fallen trees. To the aliens, Each obstacle seemed insurmountable. At first, yet their human guide navigated them with practiced ease. After another hour of difficult travel, Taesu's environmental suit gave a sharp alarm. One of his sleeves had caught on a broken branch, tearing the material and exposing his arm to Earth's atmosphere. "Don't move," Park instructed, reaching into his pack. He pulled out what looked like a simple patch kit, but the materials were specially designed for alien environmental suits. "The air, it burns," Taesu gasped, his exposed skin already showing signs of irritation from Earth's oxygen-rich atmosphere. Park worked quickly, cleaning the area and applying a sealant patch. "This is temporary," he explained, "but it will hold until we reach the station." "You carry repair materials for alien technology?" Professor Dakey asked, impressed. "Standard equipment for guides," Park replied. "Tiers and equipment failures happen all the time. We prepare for every contingency." Once Taesu's suit was patched, they moved on. The rain had lessened to a steady drizzle, but the damage to the landscape was evident everywhere. Fallen branches, flooded low areas, and mudslides on steeper slopes. "How do humans live in these conditions?" Hayori asked while they paused for a brief rest under a large tree. "This isn't even extreme weather for us," Park explained. "Many humans seek out more dangerous environments for recreation." He took out his communication device and showed them pictures. Humans climbing sheer rock faces without safety equipment, diving in deep ocean caves, running across burning desert sands, and skiing down near vertical mountain slopes. "These are fun activities?" Jinwoo asked incredulously. "For many of us, yes," Park nodded. "The challenge is part of the appeal." The aliens fell silent, trying to comprehend a species that would voluntarily seek out danger rather than avoid it. As they contemplated this strange concept, the research station finally came into view in the valley below them, a collection of low buildings with lights glowing warmly through the rain. "We made it," Park announced. "Just 1 more kilometer, downhill." The aliens looked at each other with newfound respect, not just for Park, but for themselves. They had survived 3 kilometers of Earth's wilderness during weather conditions that would have triggered planetary emergency protocols on their homeworlds, and their human guide called it just another day on Earth. The transport vehicle bounced along the dirt road as dark clouds gathered in the sky. Inside, the 4 alien students watched the changing landscape with growing unease. Trees swayed in the strengthening wind, and small animals scurried for cover. "Are those clouds normal?" asked Taesu, pointing with one of his 4 blue arms at the darkening sky. Park glanced up through the windshield. "Just a spring thunderstorm coming in. Nothing unusual for this region." "You call that nothing unusual?" Jinwoo's gills fluttered rapidly as his moisture regulators hummed. "The barometric pressure is dropping at an alarming rate." Professor Dickey checked the weather readings on his device. "The atmospheric conditions are changing much faster than the reports predicted." "That's Earth for you," Park said with a small smile. "Our weather forecasts are educated guesses at best. The system is too complex to predict perfectly." Hayori's crystalline body dimmed slightly. "On my world, weather is scheduled months in advance. No one would tolerate such chaos." "Chaos is Earth's natural state," Park replied. "Life here evolved to expect the unexpected." The transport rounded a curve in the road, revealing a valley spread out below them. In the distance, they could see rain falling in gray sheets and flashes of lightning illuminated the clouds. "We're heading right into that storm system," Sunwoo observed, his gravity compensators whirring as the transport tilted downhill. "Shouldn't we wait for it to pass?" Park shook his head. "It could last hours or even days. We don't stop for weather here unless it's extreme." "This isn't extreme?" Jinwoo asked, his voice rising. "Not yet," Park said calmly. "I've seen much worse." The first, fat raindrops hit the transport's roof with loud pattering sounds. Within minutes, the gentle rain turned into a downpour. Water streamed down the windows, making it difficult to see the road ahead. The wind pushed against the vehicle, causing it to sway slightly. Taesu's eyes widened behind his protective shields. "The atmospheric pressure changes are reaching dangerous levels for my species. My suit can only compensate so much. And my moisture regulators are struggling to maintain balance," Jinwoo added. Too much external water interferes with the system. Park frowned and tapped the transport's navigation screen. There's a research station about 3 kilometers ahead. We can stop there until conditions improve. Professor Daki moved to reassure his students. Remember, this is why Earth is classified as it is. These conditions have shaped human evolution and psychology. Observe how Park responds to what we consider an emergency. The students watched Park carefully. He sat relaxed in his seat, one hand on the steering controls, his eyes focused on the road ahead. Occasionally, he would adjust their course to avoid a puddle or fallen branch, but his breathing remained steady, his movements calm. You don't even have an environmental protection suit, Hiyori noted. How can your body handle these rapid changes? Humans are built to adapt, Park replied. Our skin is waterproof, our lungs filter air, our eyes adjust to different light levels. We don't think about it because we don't have to. A bright flash filled the sky, followed immediately by a deafening crack of thunder. The transport shook with the sound. Lightning strike, Park said. Close one. Before anyone could respond, another flash lit up the surroundings. This time the thunder was accompanied by a strange sizzling noise. Warning lights flashed across the transport's control panel. That hit something in our electrical system, Park announced, his voice still steady. We're losing power to the hover modules. The transport began to sink toward the ground as its anti-gravity systems failed. Park skillfully guided it to the side of the road before it settled with a soft thud onto the wet earth. Is everyone all right? He asked, turning to check on his passengers. The alien students looked shaken but unharmed. Professor Diki was already examining the transport systems. The main power core is intact, the professor reported. But the distribution node for the hover modules was fried by the electrical surge. Park nodded. It'll take special parts to fix it. I've already sent our coordinates to the research station. They can send a replacement transport, but with this weather, it might take hours. Hours? Sunwoo exclaimed. We can't stay here for hours. We have 2 options, Park said. Wait here in the transport with limited power for environmental controls or walk to the station. Walk? Taesu's 4 hands gripped his seat tightly. Outside? In these conditions? It's only 3 kilometers, Park said as if this was a short distance. The path follows this road most of the way. I've made this hike hundreds of times. Professor Daki considered their situation. Our suits have limited power reserves. If we stay here with failing environmental controls, we risk suit failure before help arrives. And if we go outside? Jinwoo asked nervously. We face Earth's environment more directly, the professor admitted. But we keep moving toward safety. Park began gathering supplies from compartments in the transport. He pulled out a waterproof pack, filled it with emergency equipment, and slung it over his shoulder. I'll guide you along the safest route, he said. The rain will make the trail muddy and there might be some fallen branches to navigate around. But it's manageable. The students exchanged nervous glances. On their homeworlds, no one would consider walking through an unpredictable environment during an atmospheric disturbance. Such actions would be considered reckless or even suicidal. I don't understand, Hiyori said. You're not concerned about being outside during an electrical storm? I respect the danger, Park corrected her. But I know how to minimize risks. Stay away from tall trees. Don't hold metal objects upright. Watch for flooding in low areas. These are things human children learn growing up here. Professor Daki stood up. This is what I wanted you to see. Humans don't just survive on a Deathworld. They develop complex risk assessment and management skills that become second nature. Sunwoo struggled to his feet, his gravity compensators straining. I'm not sure my systems can handle 3 kilometers in this gravity, especially on unstable ground. Park looked at him thoughtfully. I can adjust your compensators to work more efficiently in these conditions, may I? Reluctantly, Sunwoo nodded. Park knelt and made several quick adjustments to the alien's leg braces. Try that, he said, stepping back. Sunwoo took a few steps around the transport cabin. His eyes widened in surprise. The resistance is better balanced now. How did you know how to calibrate alien technology? Part of my job, Park said with a shrug. I've worked with visitors from 47 different worlds. You learn to improvise. The storm outside intensified. Rain hammered against the transports. Roof and wind rocked the vehicle. A loud crack announced a tree branch breaking somewhere nearby. We should move now, Park advised. The weather radar shows this is just the leading edge of the storm system. One by one, the aliens checked their environmental suits. Professor Dakey helped make final adjustments, ensuring everyone's protective systems were functioning at optimal levels. Remember, the professor told his students, this is a rare opportunity to experience firsthand what the academic text can only describe. Observe how a Deathworlder navigates challenges that would be catastrophic on your home planets. Park opened the transport door. Wind and rain immediately gusted inside, causing Jinwoo to flinch and Taisu to shield his face with all four arms. The human stepped outside without hesitation, then turned back to face them. Stay close together, he instructed. Follow exactly where I walk. If you need to stop, tell me immediately. Don't try to push beyond your limits. With visible reluctance, the aliens followed Park into the storm. As they left the shelter of the transport, Earth's full environment hit them. The weight of the rain, the push of the wind, the squelch of mud beneath their feet, and the wild, untamed energy of the storm all around them. Professor Dakey noted how Park moved through this chaos with practiced ease, his body automatically adjusting to the uneven ground and gusting wind. The human wasn't fighting against Earth's conditions. He was working with them, reading the environment in ways the aliens couldn't understand. Their first steps into the storm marked the beginning of a journey that would change how these students viewed humans forever. The real lesson of Earth as a death world had just begun. The sleek silver ship cut through Earth's atmosphere, its heat shields glowing orange as it descended. Inside, 4 alien students clutched their seats, their bodies tensing against the turbulence that seemed far more violent than any they had experienced on their home worlds. Entering final approach to Earth landing zone, announced the ship's computer in a calm voice that contrasted sharply with the anxious faces of the passengers. Professor Dakey moved through the cabin with practiced ease despite the shaking. His 6-fingered hands adjusted settings on each student's environmental suit. Unlike his students, the professor had visited Earth twice before and knew what to expect. Remember your training, he said. Earth's gravity is stronger than what most of you are used to. The air has high oxygen levels that can make you feel lightheaded, and the weather can change quickly. Taesu, a tall, 4-armed student with pale blue skin, looked out the viewport at the approaching mountains. Professor, the academic files say humans evolved on this planet naturally. How is that possible? The conditions seem too harsh. That is exactly why we are here, Professor Dakey replied, his large eyes blinking slowly. Earth is classified as a Death World 3 for good reason. The constant environmental stress forced rapid adaptation. Humans are the result of surviving impossible odds generation after generation. The ship landed with a soft thud on a concrete pad surrounded by tall pine trees. The landing zone was in a remote mountain area, far from major human cities to minimize cultural contamination. Jinwoo, an aquatic student with gills that fluttered nervously along his neck, checked the readings on his moisture regulator. The humidity is only 42%? My homeworld never drops below 80%. Your suit will compensate, Professor Dakey assured him. But this is why Earth is so interesting. It contains environments ranging from underwater depths to dry deserts, frozen poles to steaming jungles. Humans have learned to live in all of them. Hayori, whose crystalline body refracted light into rainbow patterns across the cabin, looked concerned. The radiation levels from their sun are much higher than the safety standards at the Academy. Humans evolved under these conditions, Professor Dakey explained. Their skin produces protective pigments and repairs DNA damage continuously. What would kill many species is simply normal for them. The 4th student, Sunwoo, was already struggling to stand. His slender frame was designed for the low gravity of his gas giant moon home. He adjusted the dials on his leg braces. I've set my gravity compensators to maximum, he said with effort. How do humans move so easily under this crushing force? Their muscles and bones developed under these conditions, said Professor Dakey. What feels crushing to you is normal for them. This is your first lesson in understanding Deathworlders. The ship's door slid open with a hiss. Bright sunlight poured in, making Hayori's crystalline skin sparkle and causing Tesu to activate his protective eye shields. A gust of wind brought in the scent of pine trees and soil, smells that were both alien and primal. Our guide is waiting, Professor Dakey said, gesturing toward the landing pad. Outside stood a human man. He appeared unremarkable by human standards. Average, height, with short black hair and light brown skin. He wore simple clothes, sturdy pants, a jacket with many pockets, and boots that had clearly seen much use. Nothing about his appearance suggested he was a native of a planet that killed most other species who tried to live here. "Welcome to Earth," the man said, bowing slightly. "I'm Park. I'll be your guide during your stay." The students exited the ship slowly, each movement careful as they adjusted to Earth's conditions. Tesu's forearms grabbed at handrails to steady himself. Jinwoo's breathing apparatus made a soft whirring sound as it added moisture to each breath. Hayori's crystalline form refracted the sunlight into dazzling patterns, while Sunwoo took each step with deliberate care, his mechanical leg supports whining under the strain. "Is this normal weather for Earth?" asked Tesu, looking up at the blue sky where white clouds drifted by. Park smiled. "This is actually quite mild. We're having a nice spring day, around 20 degrees Celsius with light winds. Perfect for your introduction." "Mild?" Jinwoo's voice betrayed his disbelief. "The wind speed varies by several kilometers per hour within minutes, and I've already detected 3 different air pressure zones just in this clearing." "That's normal," Park said with a shrug. "Earth's weather changes constantly. By tonight, it could rain, or the temperature might drop 10 degrees. We learn to adapt." The students exchanged glances. Their home worlds had climate control systems that prevented such wild variations. The idea of living in an environment that changed without warning seemed exhausting. "The transport is this way," Park said, pointing to a large vehicle at the edge of the landing pad. "It has environmental controls inside that we can adjust for your comfort." As they walked, Professor Dakey noticed how Park moved, efficiently, aware of his surroundings, constantly scanning the tree line. Despite his friendly demeanor, there was something alert about him that none of his students had picked up on yet. "You've been a guide for alien visitors for how long?" Professor Dakey asked. 15 years, Park replied. "Before that, I was in search and rescue. Spent a decade helping people who got lost or injured in these mountains." "Your planet requires rescue services just to navigate its natural environment?" Sunwoo asked, the concept clearly disturbing him. Park laughed. "Some humans come to these mountains on purpose for fun. They climb the steepest cliffs or hike for days carrying all their supplies. Sometimes they get into trouble and need help." "For fun?" Hayori's crystalline form shimmered with confusion. "You intentionally place yourselves in danger as recreation?" "One person's danger is another person's Tuesday afternoon," Park said with a smile. "You'll understand more during your visit." The transport vehicle was large and sturdy, with specially designed seating for different body types. Once everyone was settled inside, Park began driving along a rough dirt road that wound through the forest. "We'll be staying at a research station about 50 kilometers from here," he explained. "I thought we'd take the scenic route so you can see some of Earth's natural environment. The station has facilities designed for various alien physiologies, but I should warn you, it's still Earth. Things you might consider emergencies are just part of daily life here." As if to emphasize his point, the transport hit a pothole, jolting everyone inside. Park barely seemed to notice, but Tae-Soo let out a yelp of surprise, all 4 hands grabbing for support. "Is the road damaged?" Jinwoo asked, his moisture regulator, working harder as his stress level increased. "No, that's just how dirt roads are," Park replied calmly. "Constantly changing with weather and use. You get used to the bumps." Professor Dakey watched his students' reactions with interest. They were some of the brightest minds at the academy, but all their knowledge came from simulations and texts. None of it had prepared them for the reality of a death world. Remember why we're here, he said to his students. Earth isn't just a planet with harsh conditions. It's a living laboratory that produced one of the most resilient species in the galaxy. Watch and learn from Park. Everything about humans, from their biology to their psychology, has been shaped by this world. The transport continued down the winding road, deeper into the forest. Above them, dark clouds began to gather on the horizon, and a cool breeze picked up strength. Earth's weather was changing, just as Park had warned. The real lesson was about to begin.